All right, guys. So MSNBC did an interview with some swing voters in Michigan, and this is a warning. This is a red flag here for Kamala. I don't think they should take this issue lightly, but these are Arab American swing voters, and here's what they had to say.
They feel as if Kamala Harris is in lockstep with President Biden, especially when it comes to the policy pertaining to Israel and Hamas and Lebanon as well. I sat down with some Lebanese voters in Dearborn, Michigan, and they feel forgotten. They feel like they're being treated as second, third, fourth class citizens, that the only time in which people care about him, politicians care about them, is during elections, is every 4 years. But in the interim, they don't listen. They don't want to hear their voices. Let's take a listen and then we'll talk. Who is voting for Donald Trump in 24?
It's possible.
It's possible.
Yeah. It's definitely not by Harris, that's for sure.
Who's voting for Kamala Harris here? Absolutely no.
No. Not possible.
There's nothing she can do or say for us to change our mind.
Who's voting third party in 2024?
Good chance.
So Jill Stein.
Most likely. It's also a possibility that some of us will just abstain from voting altogether, but we do know that that's not the best political strategy, you know.
Why are you voting for Donald Trump?
Because my main goal is to get someone who is actively funding a genocide out of office.
Is your vote for Donald Trump a vote endorsing Donald Trump, or is it a vote against Kamala Harris?
Against Kamala Harris.
Donald Trump has said he will reinstate the Muslim ban.
He said that last time.
He's said that he wants Netanyahu to finish the job.
Donald Trump said a lot of things his first time around that terrified me. The campaign that the Democrats ran was that Donald Trump hates us. I felt safe, though, in the country when Trump was in office. I don't feel safe right now with Kamala in office. So, I mean, that to me speaks more.
They just seem to hate Kamala. And it is primarily over the issue of Gaza, right? I mean, look, we were saying that from the very beginning. We were saying when it became Kamala as the heir apparent and the nominee, I mean, it was such an opportunity to just redefine what her stance is on that issue in particular. Now, I understand that she's the vice president, and so, you know, you are still subservient to the president to some extent, right? But there was an opportunity to be better on this, right? There was an opportunity to be better. There was an opportunity, because what does Kamala do? She does the both sides rhetoric. But you know who else does the both sides rhetoric? Biden, as he arms and funds the genocide. So the only part of that I find incredibly frustrating is the downplaying of Trump, as if, like, you know, as if he would be better, was sort of the implication. And the host does a good job saying, look, if it's over the issue of Gaza that you're anti-Kamala, I don't understand how you can support Trump. Trump uses Palestinian as a slur. He says Chuck Schumer is in Hamas, right? He says he wants Netanyahu to finish the job. We just got a clip that came out the other day. Here, I'll play you a piece of it again. This is Trump talking about Netanyahu. Listen to this.
Well, look, he's doing a good job. Biden is trying to hold him back. Just so you understand, Biden is far superior to the VP. He's trying to hold him back, and he probably should be doing the opposite, actually. I'm glad that Bibi decided to do what he had to do, but it's moving along pretty good. Everything's moving along. Yes.
So I don't know why when he says stuff like this, it doesn't stick to him, right? But when Kamala does both sides rhetoric, everybody realizes that's sort of smoke and mirrors, and you're clearly arming and funding the genocide. Trump would do the same thing, except give more money and more weapons, and beyond that, allow Israel to completely annex the West Bank. So now, don't get me wrong. I completely understand Arab American voters, Muslim American voters, basically saying, I have a red line. The red line is genocide. I'm not going to vote for a candidate who's involved in this in any way, shape, or form. But by that logic, you also have to eliminate Trump. So the ones who are supporting Jill Stein, it's like, hey, I'm not gonna counter argue here if you feel like I cannot pull that lever. I completely understand that. I think any reasonable person would understand that. But just don't downplay the threat that is Trump and what he's almost certainly going to do. By the way, what did he do last time in office on this exact issue? He let Israel totally illegally annex the Golan Heights, which is Syrian territory. He moved the embassy to Jerusalem. He did the Abraham Accords, which helped lead to October 7th, because the whole point of the Abraham Accords was like, let's buy off other Gulf Arab states and give a middle finger to Palestinians and say, nobody's coming to save you, bro. You're going to be occupied forever. And then, oh, would you look at that? Hamas's reaction was, really? Watch this. And then they did October 7th, right? So he brought us that. He ripped up the Iran agreement. He ripped up the Iran agreement, which now led to a war posture between us and Iran. Like, this is part of the problem, if not the core of the problem, right? So to think like Kamala is out of bounds because of the issue of Gaza, but Trump isn't, well, he is claiming the mantle of going more extreme on that issue. He wants to deport pro-Palestine protesters, right? So I don't get. That I don't understand. That honestly makes zero fucking sense. The Jill Stein supporters, I see it. I see it. I'm not going to argue you out of that. I understand it. But the one on that panel that was supporting Trump. But look, to get back to the main point here, one of them says there's nothing she could do, right? But it's important to point out that this wasn't always the case. We covered a focus group. This is going back to, I don't know, what was it? Late October or November or something like that. No, it was probably a little later than that. But about 50% of the people who were part of the uncommitted movement, they said, no, the Democrats can earn my vote, but they have to change policy on God. Basically, they have to do an arms embargo on Israel. That's what about 50% of them said in that focus group, right? And so the opportunity was there, but maybe is there, although I don't know if it's too late now. But like, that was a way to lock in way more voters in an important swing state of Michigan, and she missed it. She missed the opportunity. But again, the thing I don't understand is how somebody could then look at Trump and say, well, I prefer him when he's promising to be worse, right? So it's still, look, there's an old Martin Luther King quote, the time is always right to do what's right. And that's what I would say to Kamala. That's what I would say to her, is that if you are in total, complete and utter lockstep with Joe Biden on this, right, then you're also begging for, even if you win the election, you're going to have an abysmally low approval rating. You know, you're like, people are going to like, oh, okay, so you're just like the rest of them. You're a fucking war criminal. And so for both substantive moral reasons, but also strategic reasons, I would say there's no reason not to change this policy. But the thing is, I think these types of politicians are scared to actually do a global realignment, which is what it would take to get Israel back in line, right? It would take, and to be fair to Obama, he tried it. He normalized relations with Cuba. He did the nuclear agreement with Iran. We were on the path to a much, much different world where we are not snuggled up to Saudi Arabia and Israel endlessly, right? But Trump rolled that back. Biden has continued on that path. Biden said he would get us back into the Iran deal. He didn't. And now, now Kamala's in this position and she's sort of repping the status quo, more or less. So, look, again, don't say we didn't warn you. I mean, this is like vindication. Look, it's only a poll. It's only a focus group of 4 people. So take it for what it's worth. But if this is indicative of a broader trend, this is kind of what we were warning about from both a moral perspective and a substantive perspective, but also from a strategic perspective, that the right thing to do was break to some extent with Biden on this issue and say, at the very least, have a credible threat of an arms embargo, if not an outright arms embargo. And by the way, since there hasn't been an arms embargo any step of the way, that's why we're looking at the horror that we're looking at now. And that's why some people feel like this is so, like, it's just not happening. Not going to pull that lever because look at what's going on. You have to be dense to not sympathize, right? You have to be dense to not sympathize and understand where they're coming from. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.